Hello. So today we're going to have an interview with Tori. I've known her for a while, mostly online. We've not met in person, but she is a butch lesbian and she has, I believe she has her own business as a dog trainer, but we'll find out more when we get into the interview. Anyways, I hope you like it. Sometimes I like to do things where I just talk to lesbians and, have a good chat. It doesn't always have to be doom and gloom all the time, right? So I hope you guys enjoy the interview. All right. So thanks for coming back and talking to me more.
Thanks for having me.
I love the interview I did with you and your wife, but I also wanted to just talk with you about the whole dog stuff because you're a dog trainer and you're
Absolutely.
also into dog sledding, right? And like that
Yeah,
kind of stuff. And
yeah,
that was such a damn thing with me when I was like junior high. I think we watched a school like, documentary type thing about Alaska. It was all about Alaska, and it was, like, the
yeah.
dog sledding. I was just like, "Oh my god." I was, like, 15. I was like, "I wanna move to Alaska and, like,
Mhm,
be a dog sled." Like, that's what I wanted to do.
mhm.
I'm in California currently with a dog that's this big, so my dreams didn't quite pan out, but, um, you're the only other woman I've ran across who's been into the dog sledding thing.
Oh, you're just in the wrong state then.
I know I probably am. I'm in California. I mean, come on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Anyway, so
far northeast, let's see, like, Maine, I've even seen some in, like, New York, I know Vermont, New Hampshire, Michigan is a big one, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and then, of course, all of Canada.
I mean,
But,
it makes sense. I mean, why does a California kid have a dream of dog sled? I mean, there's just
'cause it's awesome. I think
there's
it's
no
the passion.
snow. I have
Yeah.
to go up to the mountains.
Mhm.
Um, okay, so when did you first get into the whole idea of dog
Mhm.
training okay, what came first? Was it the dog sled stuff or just dogs in general?
It was the dog sled stuff.
Okay,
I
I got you hooked.
got I kind of fell into the dog training. I dropped out of college and I really wanted a dog. Actually, Adia, my wife, was the one who got like a dog first in our friend group, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is life changing. It is amazing. I want one."
Had you
Um,
not had any dogs before then?
I grew up with like family dogs, but we had like little ones, or like very, I don't know, just soft like lap dogs.
Okay.
Um, and I knew I wanted a dog that would help get me out of bed in the morning. Um,
Mm.
I also had like really bad depression at the time, and so I needed like something that was gonna punch me. And I had always loved huskies. I believe I was probably in like third or fourth grade, and a musher actually came to our elementary school, and we got like booties from the dogs.
Uh-huh.
And he did like a presentation. I was like, "Oh my god, that was the coolest shit I've ever seen."
Oh,
And
so
it
that
always
that
kind of,
that that's when you got
yeah,
exposed to it then.
yeah, and it like I don't think I ever thought about it once in high school because I was like, that's not practical. Like I can't make any money on that. Whatever. Like it's not in the cards. But when I ended up with my husky, it was just like world changing. I mean, this like little Spitfire puppy would like bite on my nose, and like as far as like potty training goes, she would like stare me dead in the eye wherever we were and just like squat and piss. And just like the little Spitfire was, I mean, you had to have a sense of humor. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll clean up the dog pee, whatever. But she was such a infectious, like crazy little crackhead. And then I was like, all right, well, what can I do to like meet her needs other than general dog stuff? And um, the kind of area where I had like connected with some people on Facebook, they were like, oh, well, go biking with her. I was like, okay. So I started like biking, literally just a bike and then like a leash and her. And, and I learned very quickly she did not want to be on the side. She wanted to be right out front, like yanking me along. And then
Oh,
I
interesting.
Googled,
It's just like she had the drive to do it, right? Like, she
yeah,
already had the
yeah. And I Googled like dog running in front of bike, and then I just fell from there. And
what
it all,
did you go down a rabbit hole?
yeah, yeah. And
Like,
I
what?
found people, I asked questions, I met other people who were like willing to teach me. Um, I learned a lot on my own, and then kind of just having that dog put me in the right circles.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Did you get into the dog training because she had she, right?
Yeah.
I don't wanna misgender the dog. Um,
Everyone I put her in blue because 'cause I'm like, "It's my favorite color, it matches, whatever," like, I don't give a shit.
so she probably had a lot of energy and you were like, "Holy
Yeah.
crap, I gotta, like, do something with
Mhm.
this because."
Yeah. Well, and I knew, like, you can read all the books in the world and you can, like, try and prep yourself, and I hate equating, like, dogs to literal human babies, but, like, until you're living that, the, like, what to expect when you're expecting shit, I mean, nothing prepared me for this little, like, ball of fur that just crazy. I mean, she was a terrible puppy, but it was really fun, and better for it, so
So
it
you so
was.
you you got into the, no, explain the bike thing to me.
Yeah, so and this is actually you can actually do this in California. I know a ton of people actually kind of all over the lower 48 that do it, and you can recreationally do it with just about any dog. Um,
Sorry,
I
I
would
just imagine
say
trying to do it with my dog.
so I did it with my sister's 16-pound Cavalier, King Charles Spaniel, and I've seen Chihuahuas do it,
Okay, but seriously,
Corgis, Dachshunds.
my dog is just she's got a lot of anxiety. I don't know where she
Yeah,
gets it from. Maybe because everybody in this house has anxiety issues,
I would,
but,
yeah,
like, I
that
can
could
just
help.
imagine her, like,
Mhm, and I think a lot of people, it's easier to start with, like, the dog on the side of the
Yeah.
bike, like, that's the natural, and so even before I jumped into the, like, having her out front running, which, like, pulling in harness, like, having a taut line and pulling out in front, that's, like, bike joring, but when the dog is on the side or, like, biking along with you, that would be just, like, biking with your dog. So if they're not pulling, like, in harness out in front, like, taking directional cues, you're just hanging out with your dog, which is still great. And I started doing that. I actually bought, like, a bike side attachment. I think it's called the Springer, and it's a literal just, like, a big spring, and then it had, like, what's that called? Like a breakaway line. And I was like, well, I don't want my dog to break away. So I, like, modified it, rigged it, like, got these intense carabiners and got all ready, got hooked up, and we just flew. And she was so, like, as probably as far forward on this damn thing as you could get, even though it was on the side. And I was like, there's got to be a better solution to this. Like, what am I doing wrong? She's gonna pull me sideways down the trail. And then I think I had a dog account on, like, Instagram at that point, and I just followed a bunch of people with huskies, and I saw this, like, front attachment, and I was like, "Oh my god, where did you get that?" And I'm willing to pay anything at this point to do whatever that is. I wanna do that. And so I got all the gear, I hooked her up, and she already had, like, when people wanna do it with their dogs, if they want them to ride in the front, I say, like, before you even hop on the bike, um, a very general idea of, like, directional commands, but most importantly, like, a leave it command or, like, leave that thing alone. The musher word is on by. Um, Naga already knew leave it at that point, so I wasn't super worried about squirrels, rabbits, cats, other bikers, other dogs, off leash dogs, anything you can run into in the wild when you're going really fast. Um, and I've fallen quite a few times. Wear a helmet, but she just kind of took to it after that. I really mostly just had to teach her how to stop, and then it was just me being along for the ride. And
So what's the command for stop?
whoa, or
Oh, just like a horse kinda.
yeah, yeah. It reminded me, and I very briefly rode horses as, like, a youth, and so it was like whoa. Start. Some people just start, like, yipping. Hike. Let's go, go, go. Right is G, left is ha. Then there's, like, G over, ha over. So, like, if you need to get to the other side of the trail, um, whoa is stop, and then hold on for dear life.
So when there's no snow, you're doing the bike thing.
Yeah, and I actually just this past summer, I drove down a ways in a couple states over to pick up a cart. So it looks like a giant, I mean, it's just a cart, like a dog pulling cart. It kind of looks like a souped up tricycle, but I'm standing. And so that thing weighs probably, I'm really bad at weight. I'm gonna guess maybe like 100 pounds because it's
Also,
all
you
metal.
stand on it like the
Yeah.
like the sleds, right?
Yeah, and so that the fun thing about a bike is you can go really, really fast and it's less weight than a cart, and you can also, like, help the dog. So I can help on hills, it's a lot easier, especially if you have, like, a bungee line to encourage them to, like, if I'm working on sprinting, I'm gonna take her on a bike. So we're just gonna go as fast as we can, and I'm gonna help and let her run her brains out. If I wanna work on, like, pulling or going at a slower pace and making sure she is like building muscle, I'll go on the cart because I can't help at all. I just stand there and like steer it. And then she's genuinely pulling like my weight in the cart. So I got one of those and that's been fun. It's very different, shockingly.
I didn't realize that dogs could pull because you said the cart's 100 pounds?
It's heavy, yeah, and I have to like assemble it, put it in the car, take it all out, assemble it, get all the dogs strapped up, just two of them. But
And one dog pulls you in the cart?
oh yeah, yeah.
I didn't realize they were that strong.
Yeah, I didn't either. And then, I mean, we could go into like weight pulling. That's another sport that people do with their dogs. Like dogs pulling thousands of pounds, like literal just bricks of cement.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's really popular with Malamutes because they were kind of the tankers. The Husky was like an even pace over a long distance, and the shorter distance at a higher weight was the Malamute. So that's a big, big difference. And they literally like versus other dogs, their like rear assembly or their angulation in their back is different. Like their skeleton in the back is different. They're major tankers.
So you got into the oh, did you do sled stuff too, or you were you just on the bike? You did
Yeah, so I started on the bike and I actually got a fat tire bike. I don't know if those are super popular
yeah, I
around
know
here.
what
Okay, so I got one of those. And I was riding on frozen lakes for a while.
mm,
The conditions have to be really perfect, otherwise you have a death wish, and sometimes you have to adjust the pressure. You can get spiked tires, but they're not cheap. So I just went out with a prayer and made sure the conditions were correct, and I fell a whole lot. But I fell over like on snow, so it was fine. And we did that for probably our first couple winters, and I only had her. And my wife's dog had no desire to pull, so I wasn't gonna like hook her up or anything. And then I found a Canadian company that makes a really light, like fold down sled, and then they also make like a modified kick sled. I'd call it a mini sled because it's not shaped like a true kick sled. It literally just looks like a dog sled shrunk down. And she was strong enough to pull me on that. And then I started getting more dogs, and then it became a lot easier.
so you okay. So then when did you get into the dog training aspect? You
I
do dog
work.
training for a living now, right?
Yeah, it's my own company, my baby. Um, I started in dog kennels, um, like daycare boarding, just working like the most shit tier, shit scraping, like scraping it off the walls, like putting in my time job. I worked my way up through that one to like assistant, whatever, running kind of the place when the manager wasn't or the owner. It was a mom and pop place. And then I left there and I dabbled in pet retail, but retail is like a whole monster. And
I think we
oh,
I remember you being in retail. I remember you telling
yeah,
stories about it in one of the
it's
chats.
awful. Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah,
Um,
some interesting situations, yeah.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
what? I think all working with the public's that way. Like
yeah.
retail or anything like it's always just a
Mhm.
shit show, you know?
It is. Yeah, yeah. It was something. Um, and I actually left. there were just like changes and whatnot going on. I left like right after slash right before COVID hit. And so everything shut down. And so
Yeah.
then I was like helping out part time whenever needed at like the barn where my sister was riding her horse, just doing like stall stuff. And my assistant manager at the retail place, we got along really well. We had a lot of the same ideas about things. She was easy to listen to as far as like teaching went, and she had her own company and was doing the like retail thing on the side to sort of supplement that. And so she left, and then she texted me and was like, "What are you up to?" I was like, "Oh, just it's COVID. Like, I take money where I can. Like, everything's stopped." And she was like, "All right, well, like, show me a negative test, and then come on over for an afternoon, and let's see what you think." And I did, and she was just kind of taking private clients as is. So I basically built her daycare out of her place, got more clients, started doing like board and trains out of her place. And then before I knew it, I was like, oh shit, I'm doing the dog training thing. And then it just kind of kept going from there.
So you didn't have any like formal kind of education with it. You just learned from
Other
her.
than experience, yeah, just and like having my hands on like thousands of dogs. I mean, the kennel where I worked was very eye opening. I mean, I just had, and I think my kennel experience was helpful and very different from like what people typically think from or think of, because the kennel that I worked at, there was no group play. Dogs were either in runs or so like a kennel run, or they were on leash and then brought into the yard on their own. And we walked every single dog every day, for like potty times, like play times. Everyone was walked, I think, like 2, 3 times a day. And over holidays, I mean, we would have like 80 dogs that are all getting
So would
individually
you say
walked.
that a lot of your dog training experience just came from just
Just like
working with the dogs
experience.
and figuring
Yeah.
out what worked and what didn't work kind of thing?
Yeah. And sometimes the
Okay.
hard way. um, and that sort of kennel atmosphere actually attracted a lot of dogs that don't thrive in the really popular like dog boarding places where they have group play. And so we got like the hard cases. And so I had
Oh,
to learn very
you got the
quickly.
bad dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are bad dogs. Like it is what it is. But it made me so much better of a handler. And I learned a lot of things that I didn't even know I learned until it was like pointed out to me, and they were like, "Oh, you handled that really well." And I was like, "Okay." Like I just did
So would you say
what
that
I
you
knew.
pretty actively learned from the lady too? Like did she kind of was
Yeah.
it like a mentoring type thing?
Yeah, and like I will say yes, Adia will say, "No, you did all your own homework, like you did all of this outside stuff." And I definitely do that too. I think more of the valuable things that I learned from this previous boss was like managing a business, I think,
Yeah.
and being a little bit better at handling clients. But as far as like learning about the dogs, no, that was all my outside learning. I learned how
So
to
how'd you learn it? Did you just start
just kind of doing it.
No,
um,
but, like, did you do, like do you have online resources? Did you watch so I've self-taught wood carving, but I
oh,
watched, like,
okay,
a
yeah,
lot of YouTube.
yeah,
I practice, of course, you have to do it in order to really learn it and make
hmm
mistakes, but really a lot of it just came from YouTube, seriously.
yeah. I think a lot of it would probably be like I'm thinking back to the time too. What would have been like Instagram and then like tunneled over to YouTube because these trainers had like a presence there, and then they were like, oh, I want to make a longer video. Like hop over to YouTube, and
Mhm.
I would watch that. A lot of reading, um, funny enough, and then watching the videos, and the trainer can say all the things out of their mouth that they want, but watching like the body language, seeing, oh, how did that work, how can I apply it here, trial and error with my own dogs was a lot of it. And then the dog that Adia brought into the picture, when I got with her, her dog just required like a whole world of different training and needs than like my dog, and so it really opened up like
Now I know, see, I got into horses as a teenager, and I rode until, like, I was probably 23 or so, um,
Nice.
but, uh, so horse training, if it's anything like dog training, has different techniques. Some people train
Yep.
horses certain ways, some people other some like, the old school horse training where you like, like the rough way that some
Yeah.
folks do it, which isn't really mainstream anymore, but the rough way where they like, cover the horse's eyes and jump on and hope for dear life,
Yeah.
versus the really gentle way you see some of these guys like the horse whisperer, where they work with them a lot before they actually get on their back. It's like, but so
Mhm.
is dog stuff the same way? I'm assuming different techniques and
Yeah.
styles. Oh,
It's it's a little bit of a conversation for sure. There are some very polarizing, like, parts of it. Um,
I'm not surprised by this because, like, no offense to anybody, but like dog people can sometimes be
they're fucking nuts.
really fucking crazy, and you're
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I'm a country girl. I'm kind of old school that way. I
Mhm.
don't think dogs are babies.
No,
I think you're doing an animal a disservice
if you're not
when
respecting.
you what is that called? When you act like they're like humans?
Yeah, I mean, you're humanizing them when you're not
And
respecting them for, like, the species that they are.
yeah, like I mean, because I did some horse training and it was kind of the same way. Like
Mhm.
you have to speak the horse's language and you also have to respect that they have their own language and their own way and the own stuff they like, the kind of way they like to do shit too. And you can't expect them to like
Yeah.
do it your way, kind of
It's
deal.
very, very hard to communicate that to clients when there is such a push. I would say, within the last 10 years, even, of like dogs are family. And they are, like, there's countless studies of losing a dog. Sometimes we grieve that more than we lose a true family member or like
Depends on the
biological
family member.
relative. Yeah. And but that doesn't
No, I
mean.
mean I've absolutely cried many tears over dogs I've lost over the years,
Oh
but I'm
yeah.
not. I don't know. It's just this different type of like. Uh, These
It's
people who act like they're
scary.
the babies, and then the
Yeah.
dog is usually really poorly behaved, and you're like, and they'll be doing all this crazy shit or attacking other dogs, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and they're, "Don't do that," and you're like, "Oh,
Yep.
like the dog doesn't speak English, like a
Yeah.
dog doesn't."
They don't. That's a
so
fun one.
so what's so what's your philosophy of dog training?
I'm definitely my base started in, like, if I'm going to use, like, the words in the dog world, my base is pretty much, like, positive reinforcement, but as far as, like, all 4 quadrants of, like, behavior, operant conditioning, I'm definitely, like, I consider myself balanced, like, between, like, compulsion and then like force free, which I'm also force free. I'm not interested in forcing a dog to like be afraid of something, but also like as far as the balance goes, like some shit just has to get done. We don't like everything in life. Your dog doesn't like everything in life. Like example of that, nail trimming. In my house, I
Huh,
don't
yeah.
tolerate a dog that will not let me clip its nails. And I don't care if that involves 2 leashes, 2 people, a muzzle. Our little guy, I wrap him up like a burrito, like how a vet would do, and then I pull out his little leg and I Dremel his nails. Um,
Now is there a way to teach them though to hold still for nail
yeah,
clipping?
oh yeah, and there's people. I think there's like, oh god, I forget the name of it. There's like I typically would work on like counter conditioning, but there's some people who do oh god, it's like the opposite of compliance. It's like where the dog like consents, which I'm like, okay, cool. If you have 2 years to counter condition your dog and you don't care that their nails look like eagle talons, like that's fine.
Well, that's true. Yeah, you do. That's yeah,
Like,
that is the balance, isn't it?
and I
'Cause
think for some it works. That's fine, but not in my house. No.
I guess that would go a lot to, like, maybe trying to make sure you do that right from the beginning if you get them young or get them as
Mhm.
puppies so that they don't
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
We
So like my
we weren't great
husky.
like that.
Yeah, my husky. I mean, 9 weeks old, little bitty puppy. I was using like human baby nail clippers, and I was just clipping her nails. And so now she's going to be 7, and she just flops on her back, and I Dremel them all in 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Um, our big Malinois that we had, like 80 pounds, he would gator roll on a leash. So he had 2 leashes and Adia, like, holding him, and then a fully muzzle, like, metal muzzle. And he, like, tore my earlobe once, and he, like,
Oh,
smacked me in
damn.
the face. Yeah, and we that was about a year of, like, "Hey, buddy, the Dremel's fine, but I'm still gonna do it because, like, the health risk, and then if he decided to jump up, like, I'm not dealing with talons on an 80-pound dog." And eventually, like, did he ever love it? No. Did he learn how to tolerate it and that he was safe and we weren't actually harming him? Yeah. And so it became nothing to him then, and he was fine.
Okay. Recently, my wife has started working with, well, actually, it started a while ago. I didn't know this, but she's been working with the dog on her nails, and
Aw,
she'll sit on the ground with her, and she'll have some little treats off to the side. And she
yeah.
basically started by just like lifting her foot up.
Mhm.
And if she stood for that, she'd give her a treat, and then it progressed
Yeah.
to lift your foot up and let me put the clippers to
Mhm.
your foot, but not clip
Yep.
them. And now the other day, she sat on the floor with her and managed to do her front feet,
Yeah.
um, with her not fighting, like, no one was holding
Mm.
her, but it
Yep.
took a while because the dog
A long time. Yeah.
she'd get her to hold still, she'd clip one nail, and then the dog would do a lap. And I'm like, "Is
Yeah.
that okay?" But I also read someplace that oftentimes they need to run off that nervous energy, like, if they get
Mhm.
super nervous.
Shake it off. I
So,
mean, we're
like
all limbic beings.
so my wife, it just sits there, right, and waits for her to come back because there's treats, so she'll come back. So
Yeah.
she does a lap, she comes back, and she sits there. She'll
She's
pick
just
up
counter conditioning her. Mhm.
yeah. So, it's been working, and I've been, like,
It
very
does.
impressed.
Yeah, it does. The other thing you can do is, like, if you got a dog that's real scared, like a Dremel or the Clippers, just, like, leave him out. Let him be part of the environment. Like, let him see it exist, and it's just there. It's just something around them. Um,
Okay, so this is hilarious. Uh, I kinda that's how I trained my son with the clippers.
yeah. I mean, it's very I've been told a few times that I get clients who are like, "Can you train my kids?" And I was like, "No. No,
So
thanks."
my son's autistic, and he's gotten a lot better because that's taken years to get used to, but he was so super sensitive with his haircut, and also just hair cutting freaked him out. So,
Mhm.
like, we when he came home to live with us, we adopted him. When he came home to live with us, he was about 2 and a half, and we finalized adoption when he was 3, and I think the first time we took him for a haircut, we and every time, like, we'd have to hold him, like,
Yeah.
and he'd
Yeah.
just be like,
Mhm.
they were just like, "Oh my."
Yeah.
But there was no and then it was really awkward and difficult because we had to find a place that would understand and tolerate the screaming, and
Mhm.
finally, after, like, a year and a half of just doing this, I was like, "You know what?" I shaved my own head at home. I'm like, "You know what? The boy's just gonna start getting a shortcut, okay? Because and so, and he was in, like, a program where, people would come in the house and, like, work with him on different stuff.
Mhm.
And they tried to get him used to the clippers, and it just didn't really work and then finally I just started working with him on it, and it
Mhm.
really was I noticed that it reminded me of horses a lot, and I noticed that for him, it was really helpful to give him a countdown.
Mhm.
But he knew they wouldn't be there, so I'd be like, "Okay, count of 3, 1, 2,
Right.
3, great job."
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that's we just kept doing that, and finally, like, now he goes to the barber shop, you
Oh,
know?
I love that.
So
That was Adia's dog. We had to find, like, a very specific, like, grooming shop that took 4 people to, like, hold her down, and
mhm,
we did that for many months, and then finally I was like, "Fuck it." Like, what's stopping me from like, double leashed her at home. I could touch her paws at that point, she didn't care. I put the muzzle on her for everyone's safety, including hers, and she stood there and like, eventually she was laying on the ground, she just didn't even care, but I would take her paw and I would just get it done. And those first couple times were very rough. But then she was like, "Oh, like, I don't like this, but you're not hurting me, like, it's okay." And I would, like, grab it and I would just, like, do it, and then I give her a second, and she was like, "Okay,
okay,
well,
okay.
this is not so bad." But it was
So
about
what
a
kind
year
of
of
huh?
that. It was about a year of, like, going to that groomer and, like, having people have to, like, and she was screaming, she was barking, she was growling. I mean, 4 people holding her down to get, like, 1 clip.
Mhm.
Awful.
See, the plus side to having a dog versus a baby, though, is see, you can
You
you
can
can lock a
muzzle
dog in
them.
the kennel and go out and have a drink. You can't do that
Hell
with a
yeah.
baby. Legally, at least, you can't.
Yeah. I was
Um,
gonna say.
sometimes you feel like you wish you could.
Yes.
Actually, it's more like I wish I could lock myself in a kennel so I get left alone.
Mhm.
Um,
Seen that one too.
so what would you say that mostly you're working with now when you have clients? What kind of training are you mostly doing with, dogs?
Everything from puppy obedience, puppy potty training, all the way to behavior modification for like dangerous dogs. One of my clients had a live bite on a human, and now the dog is a dangerous dog. He's got to wear a muzzle.
Oh, no.
Whenever he's out on the house, he's not allowed to be off leash anywhere.
Big dog, small dog?
Mid-size, he's probably about 40 pounds. He's a shelter special pit bull terrier mix.
Yeah.
He's got just like every health condition you can think of.
Nope.
Poor dude is like, I mean, he's like his legs are all fucked and he's got allergies. He's reactive. He's anxious. Like,
Wow, what a great purchase.
yeah, and she's awesome. I love this client. She's like, and she's the perfect home for him too. I mean, she's like, I didn't know this. I thought she was in her 30s. I'm awful at age. She's like coming up on her 60s, and this dog is just her whole
You
world.
thought she was in her 30s and she's coming up on her 60s?
She's had like probably a lot of work done,
Oh,
and also she's just like very vibrant. I don't know. I'm bad at like age to begin with, but I was not expecting to hear like, oh, I'm like late 50s, but she, I mean, her whole life is just her job and this dog. And she had others. She actually got him from and she told me too, she's like, I'm such a dumb fuck. She's like, I'm a sucker for the ones that have all the issues. Why do I do this to myself? And
well, but, I mean, it
uh,
sounds like she has the time, right?
she
Yeah,
does,
'cause
yeah. She's
yeah,
actually the perfect fit for him. So
yeah.
it's okay, but it's exhausting.
But you
He's
could see how
from
it would be a bad match if like, someone who doesn't have a lot of time or maybe has a family and, like, that's that would
yeah,
have been
that's also a lot of my clients too, is
yeah.
getting dogs that, and it doesn't like you don't know what you don't know. And it is not your fault when you were sold a lie by people who think they're doing good, but that's not really what's in the best interest of the dog. So that's a lot of fun too, is like hard truths for people. um, I've got another client that I'm helping. They've decided to rehome the dog because they're just not willing to put in the work, which is fine, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you I don't know if you have the same situation over there, but, like, I know in California, there's been just a lot of the whole, I guess, privately owned kind of like, kennel places popping up that adopt dogs out or the adoption places, like, it's
Hmm.
not so much through the
Oh, like
Humane
for like a
Society
county.
like
Oh
it
yeah.
used to be.
Yeah, there's
I mean,
also
we still have that, but there's a lot of, like, more
yeah.
privately owned ones.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a lot of that kind of thing over there
Oh
too?
yes.
Okay.
Oh yes. Yeah, and there's some really bad ones.
Oh, they get there we had one here that was super shady and did some creepy shit and got shut
We've
down.
got some that caught for embezzlement. We've had quite a few that, and this is like a little scary and bad, are very comfortable um, sharing that they will buy dogs at puppy mill, like at auction, and then turn around and sell them. So you're supporting the mills and keeping them
Yeah,
open because you showed up, and that seems to be lost
sure.
on people, which is just like crazy to me.
Yeah, yeah. Um, you know what? Do you ever get asked to go along with somebody to adopt a dog or to buy a dog as like
I
a
have
trainer to kind of
friends. I would like if someone reached out for like a very like I saw it a couple times at my previous like under my other boss at my previous job. And I have friends who have like reached out now. And um I think I've learned my lesson probably a few times now that it's nice when people ask, but if they're not paying like friends, it really feels like throwing spaghetti at a wall because like we've had a few friends now that have asked and I've given them my time and my education and my experience and then they turn around and make really fucking dumb choices and
oh, they
then
don't follow your advice.
yeah, they don't.
Well,
Like and then the dog fucking dies, for example, because and that's sad and I'm sad for them. I'm like, you didn't have to go through that if you just listen to me, that's crazy. But,
See, now I would think that would be a good like that's like I think that's a good aspect of training, right? Like if you wanted to get a dog and you admittedly don't know a whole lot, why not bring a pay some
one
money
more
to bring a
thing.
trainer along and kind of,
Yeah. Or
get their
like
opinion. Like
getting
I thought that that would be a good thing for people who buy horses too, because I remember like people
yeah.
buying horses, they were people were inexperienced and they would get taken by horse traders all the time.
Mhm.
Like horse trader, it's the same thing with horses, right? And I'm sure you know that
Yeah,
because you said you have
it's
a
very
sister who,
similar. My sister who still rides and stuff, and now she does, massage therapy for them. She does
yeah.
equine and human. Um, she said it's very similar.
Yeah, go buy horses at auction and then turn around and sell them to unsuspecting people,
Insane.
oftentimes drugging them,
Mhm.
drugging
Yep.
horses, so they're
Mhm.
sedated. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really fucked up. And then you get the people who are like, "Well, I rescued them. I saved them." And I was like, "Did you exchange money? Was there an exchange of
Mm,
currency? You bought that dog, you just bought it with a shitty hand of dice. So congrats, I'm here to help if you want it." Like it's
yeah.
yeah. And then like this client that I'm helping her home. I mean, she didn't know any better. And now is dealing with the results of that. And like it sucks, but again, this is why we do these other things now.
Mhm.
So that's fun. Yeah.
So how long have you been you say you have your own training business. How long have you had that?
Since 2022.
Okay.
Early, like January of 2022, so not very long. Um, and I mostly started um, before we had moved. When I left my previous job, um, I didn't say anything because I am a person with ethics. And there was nothing ever signed, and I could have rocked a lot of shit. But I just decided to leave. And when clients found out I had left, they were like, well, where'd she go? Like, and so they sought me out and then became private clients. So, and then from there it was like friends and word of mouth. And so I had a good base when I first started, and then I moved and I started from scratch and just slowly building it again.
Is there any like licensing for dog trainers or anything like that? Or is it just
Yes and no.
yeah.
Like legally, no. Like anyone, Joe Blow down the street could say he's a dog trainer, which is really fucking bad and happens.
Oh yeah, I
It's
mean,
it's
same
a
thing with I
big
guess dog
thing.
breeders too. Like there's
Yeah. But the other, like the flip side of that is I don't trust the bureaucrats to be able to enforce or understand dog behavior, everything. So
yeah,
it's
that's
double edged.
a good
Um,
point.
there are like programs that you can take. There's people who like to take all these different classes, and I've found, and this is just my personal experience, that the people with all of the alphabet letters behind their name, it looks very impressive. But when I see their work either in person or on a video or I meet clients, I'm not impressed. Um, so it really, like, yeah, unfortunately, as a client, you will need to vet your trainers. And, but I think the biggest thing is like, if you find yourself asking a question of the trainer and they can't explain both the how and the why, like that should be your first red flag.
Wow.
Because people ask me too, they're like, "Oh my god, you don't have any like official certifications?" And I'm like, "No, because I don't need them." Like I've read, I can explain all of that to you. Like I've read on my own time, but I don't need it to do my job well, as you see with your dog, and that's why you keep paying me. So it's definitely a job where like hands-on experience is everything. Like I start in a kennel, help at a vet, help at a humane society, um, any of that. Just get your hands on as many dogs as you can. And that's really the best teacher. And like literally sitting and watching. Like I used to watch just like groups of dogs playing and interacting. And that is like the best sort of teacher.
What do
Um,
you think? What do you think you learned? What are things that you picked up
how
on?
to read the dog's body language, the behavior, um, how they interact with each other, how like, oh, what did that mean? A big one. We as humans think that, you know, tail wagging is the dog's really happy, right? Tail wagging can be a sign of aggression. Like holding the tail high and kind of curled up and wagging really fast, that's not good. Like that's not, oh, dog is friendly. That's, oh, dog is being an asshole and is probably gonna lunge at the other dog. Um, Things like that, that unless you're watching that and then you see the dog, wagging and then pouncing at the other dog, and then, you're breaking up either a dog fight or they're both playful enough, like, you have to see that. Or, someone can explain it to you, but like the default for us is not like, oh, wagging tail, they're happy. Like,
Well, yeah, because they do wag their tail, like, all the time for all kinds of
mhm.
things.
A
It
dog's posture, ears forward, holding ears forward, the eyes. I don't, this one I think is a little bit more mainstream, but like whale eyeing. So like if the dog's like this, like that's bad. Like back the
Mm.
fuck off, or like watch where you are in their space. Um, let's see, rigid. Like when the dog goes like rigid and is staring down another dog, like get that dog fucking moving because they're stewing. Like
Yeah.
move that dog's brain. Because the minute you start getting them going, they got to focus on something else, and then they can't sit there and stew. So keeping them moving. There's so much of that though that, like, someone could have told me, but I saw it play out firsthand. So then I learned, like, oh fuck, don't let that happen.
Yeah. No, again, it reminds me of the horse thing. If you watch
That's yeah,
horses, you'll learn their
yeah,
language, right? Yeah.
it is, and it's totally a language thing and a big barrier.
And I'm
So
so surprised, like, I think because I grew up on farms and ranches and was around dogs since I was born,
mhm.
and around working dogs and ranch dogs and wild dogs and, all kinds of dogs. Um, these are things that, like, I know about, and I assume everybody
Yeah,
else knows about. It's
no,
like
they don't have a fucking clue.
I'm always surprised when I'm out with, and I'm not saying my dog's perfect, but she also
I aren't either.
but I am in control. Like she knows not to start no bullshit,
Yeah,
But when we're out walking, I can spot those other dogs doing this thing, and I'm like,
yeah.
don't you not? Your dog is like, I don't know. It's just like, how can people not recognize this stuff?
They don't. And that's why I have great job security.
Oh, well, good
But,
for you.
it's yeah, it's mind-blowing, and I think it's a little, like, adjacent to, like, the whole, I don't know, like, once your eyes have been opened, you can't not see it, you know? Like, once you realize, I don't know, I'm gonna loosely equate it to, like, radical feminism. Like, once your eyes have been opened or, like, like, you can't exist anymore and not see that to some degree, right?
You've heard it here first, folks. Dog training is much like radical feminism.
Exactly like it. I knew I'd get shit for that one. But like, you can't pull the blinders down again. Like, and actually, I mean, I
No, I'm
do it.
not giving you shit. I think it's a brilliant comparison as I'm laughing my ass off for it because it's like, yeah, that tracks.
It's crazy. Like, Adia was the one who pointed that out to me too. Like, and that was really difficult too. Like personal experience when I was figuring out what worked very well for her dog, um, and how to more effectively communicate in a way that was on her level. Um, the changes were just like night and day. And
Mhm.
so having to explain that to her in a way that was like, I love you, you're my wife, so I'm going to be gentle, but also like this is a hard truth and this is what we have to do so that she can be in a better mindset. We got to communicate with her in her sort of way. It was difficult, it's hard. And she was like, once you learn, it's like how could you go back? But also it's a lot of fucking work to
Yeah.
change and it's
Yeah.
hard. I mean, she was basically sold. I mean, she was like 19 years old and walked into the Humane Society on New Year's Eve and was just given this young dog and was basically sold like the equivalent of a what she was told was a golden retriever. And this dog was not a golden retriever. Like,
Oh, by the way, they never know what the fuck those dogs
not a
are.
fucking clue. Not at
I'm
all.
like,
No.
what are you
Not.
talking? Do you know how many times they say a shepherd mix and it's not a shepherd
They're
mix
doing
at
that for
all?
a
Like, what are you
reason.
even talking about?
They said Lily was a Weimaraner mix, and she was so clearly a fucking, like, and we did a DNA test. She was Amstaff, American Pit Bull Terrier, Rottweiler, Foxhound, Weimaraner. So she had a sprinkle of Weimaraner, but, like,
Yeah.
when they do that, because, names will move dogs.
Well,
It's dumb.
also, do you know I noticed that's hilarious, especially here where, like, what is just categorized as pit bulls are very popular.
Yeah.
But they also many apartment complexes won't allow them.
Mhm.
So, like, it's a, like, a plus and a negative, like, they're popular, but also not if you're trying to, like, you know,
Yeah. Well,
not
and I
if
think
you're
it's, like, so unfortunate for this, like, amazing dog that just has, like, game drive, tenacity, like, they are terriers. They were meant to kill.
Yeah,
Like, their history is bull baiting and dog fighting. You know, that's not a great thing, but it is reality. So we need to acknowledge it, take it in, and then set your dog up for success, right?
yeah.
No, I'm gonna put it in pajamas. Don't discriminate. And then all of a sudden, Fifi and her kennel mates who have been poorly bred and just take, bad genetics one after the other, the brother and the sister fucking, and then those dogs are killing the owners. That
Yeah,
sucks.
yeah.
Like, it's so fucked up. So
Yeah,
that's
I
great.
I feel you, but what I noticed them doing here is they will call obvious pit bull mixes shepherd mixes, and I'm like, because
Yeah,
they know the pit bull is a
yeah.
isn't gonna move. I'm like,
It's such a disservice to the dog too. Like, they deserve so much better from us, and, like, yeah, it's too bad. Yeah. Or they'll do it to, like, adopt out the dogs, and I'm like, it's cool that you want to get it a home, but if you sell this to the owner and they think that you're telling the truth, you're setting them up for failure.
yeah, I mean, you want the dog to have a good home, like a home where they're going to get adequate attention, exercise, food, just like everything, right?
Mhm.
And I you can't a dog that is not being active, not being taken outside and just being allowed to be a complete stress case, tearing up the house all day. You can't that's not a happy dog,
No, it's not. But hey,
you
it's a
know?
dog that's not on the shelter floor, right?
Okay, but
Well,
do
that's
people
where
know
they
that,
get.
like, dogs can pretty much survive on their own too? Like, they're animals. Like, I know this for a fact because my grandparents had, like, 500-acre farm, right? And, one time my wife came when we were first dating, I was living with my grandma, and I was like, "Oh, we're gonna take a walk out, like, take I'm gonna take her around the trees, and we're gonna take a walk out there." Trees were, think, blooming, and my grandma's like, "Oh, okay, well, take the bullwhip with you because you don't run across those pack of dogs."
Oh my god. Holy
So, like,
shit.
I mean, there's
That's
literally
brilliant though.
packs of dogs that will run wild. Like,
That's
you got,
crazy.
yeah,
That's so
so,
funny. Oh my god. All you gotta do is charge at them. Just apply spatial pressure and they'll all run.
yeah. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the whip, right? So you use the whip to create distance and then the dogs take off.
I have had to actually physically land to 2 large dogs in the
Yeah.
last couple years,
Oh god.
with my little dog. So I have a little dog,
Yeah.
and she was on a leash, and
Mhm.
this annoys me to no end.
I know what you're gonna say.
This apartment complex has a
Oh
small
no.
park. It is a not a dog park. It's not a dog park. You're supposed to have your dogs on leash, but all the dog people decided all because they're the dog people that are this the babies. They decided they're going to take that park over, which means the little kids can't go play there, which
Mhm.
means I can't walk my dog through there because all their dogs are off leash and only one of out of 10 is well behaved.
Yeah.
And I was walking my dog through the park one day with my son, which so I'm having them to be in charge of two uh
Yeah.
you know,
Lives.
lives here, yes. And this woman was there with two big dogs, and both of the dogs just I saw him do the whole thing you talked about, and it
Scared
just
of them.
and
Mhm.
one dog was kind of hanging in the back, but you could tell the one in front was the one that was going to do the attacking, and it did. It laid into my dog, and of course my dog started screaming bloody murder, which didn't help the situation at all.
Well,
And I'm doing this thing, I'm having her by the leash trying to, like, yank her up as this dog's getting around, and so I
yeah.
just start laying into him to,
Yeah. Mhm.
kick him and get the fuck off,
Mhm.
and then the woman's just sitting there screaming, doing nothing,
Yeah,
and
because they
then
don't
I
have a fucking clue
finally
what.
yelled at her, I was like, "You better get your damn
Oh.
dogs," you know? Then she got mad at me for hitting the dog, I'm like, "Bitch."
Yeah.
Your dog isn't killing my dog or biting my son.
Oh,
Like,
no, I'll whip the shit out of a dog that runs up on me like that. We don't do that.
no. And it's just like, anyways, I'm known as a really horrible human around here because every time I show up at the park,
Yeah.
I actually had a guy try to like fight me one time when I said this was when my son was much because we've lived here 10 years. When my
Yeah.
son was much smaller, like now it's hilarious because he's a gigantic. But when he was little, um, and those dogs would be offline, I'd be like, I'd stand by the gate and I'd be like, y'all better get your dogs out of line now. They're not supposed to be offline. And I'm coming with my son. And they'd be so fucking pissy about it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, that's just rude. I mean, you know what? So that just pisses me off, right? Because they're putting dogs over the kid,
Yeah.
over kid
Well, and
safety.
they're like, I don't know, that's where I'd like break out the camera and like send it to the building owner and be like, I don't know,
I
or
did talk,
contact
the
the city.
apartment complex says that that is not their jurisdiction. It's not part of the complex. But
Mm. Go to the city.
I did call security on that woman that when that one time happened because she did live here. I watched where she went and I was just like, she lives here and her
Yeah.
dogs are attacking other dogs. So
Yeah. That's insane. Yeah. Always, I mean, have a camera ready if you're not already fighting off another dog. Um, the best way to, if you're getting charged, like if you haven't been attacked yet, is if you carry a second leash or anything like that, kind of like the whip, like whipping, stepping forward towards the dog. I would say it's very, very slim that unless the dog has truly been trained in any sort of like personal protection, where they've been trained to handle the pressure, which those dogs usually have responsible owners and don't end up in that situation in the first place. But stepping towards the dog, right? Because our initial reaction is to go like, "Oh shit," right? And then
mhm.
the dog's like, "Yeah, opening." Step in towards the dog and watch them back off. You know, whip a leash to create space.
Well, what I've noticed is the problem is they're charging at my dog, not me.
Yeah, so scoop up your dog and then charge.
Oh, okay, okay,
Or carry a second leash, hold your dog closer, and then whip.
okay.
I've had
Video is probably going to get tons of people.
good. um, yeah. Otherwise, if there is like, if your dog, if the fight is already happening, you know, and it's so fast. Usually, it's like, oh, as fast as it started, it's over.
Oh
But if
yeah.
it's going on and you find you're like, oh fuck, and the owner's not doing anything again, spare leash, choke them off. Wrap the leash around the dog's neck, and then through the handle of the leash, tighten, twist, end up, and choke them because the dog can't fight if it can't breathe, right? And then hand that fucker back over to the owner and say, "You're paying for my vet bills. Thanks."
I love your I feel like you got country wisdom. I love it.
I'm sick of everyone's bullshit wisdom.
Well, maybe a little bit of that too. Oh, have you noticed that lesbians tend to really gravitate towards like dog stuff,
Oh yeah,
kennel training?
oh yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's
that
cool.
stuff.
I don't know, maybe it's a position that commands respect. Um, but like respect in a way that I don't know. I've met a handful of. Yeah, you can let her out if you want. I've had a handful. You're good of like male clients that, and there's like a couple ways you can handle it. Either let them fall into their shit and and then just sit there silently and be like, okay, or confront them and be like, you're paying me. Do you want me to teach you or not? Like, um, and I also think that it's a field where more often than not, you're usually dealing with like the stay-at-home mom or um like usually the stay-at-home mom is what I see, or just like the dad is off working still and the mom just got home from her job and here's the kids and the dog. So it's like a nice field if you want to actually communicate and then watch people listen, which is nice.
Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. It's just
Maybe.
I was thinking like you hear about how there's no more lesbian bars and stuff, but like I if I was single, I'd be hanging around at the dog store. I mean,
That's
just
how I got Adia. We
seriously,
went to the dog
every
park
time I
together.
go in there, I see at least one lesbian. That and the craft store as well.
Really?
See
Yeah, I
quite a
believe
few
that.
lesbians at the craft store.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Addie, I
I
would say
guess
the
it depends
same.
what lesbian you're going for. You can hang out at Home Depot too. I mean,
Uh-huh. Oh, I take the dogs to Home Depot, so that's like you
oh
can
my
cover a
gosh, there
wide
you go.
field.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely.
You know, the best service I ever got at Home Depot was another butch lesbian.
Really?
Yeah, because
Oh
usually,
my god.
if you've ever known about, I mean, you know Home Depot, you don't get no service in there. No one knows what the
Not at
heck
all.
they're
No, no
talking
one needs
about,
to talk.
right?
Yeah.
I was walking through there one time. I was looking for something, and I'm, doing my whole let's walk down every freaking aisle and like try to find it. And she sees me from like halfway across the store, and she does this, and she just like beelines over me. And she's like, "Can I help you find anything, ma'am?" And I'm like,
That's
what?
amazing.
First of all, she correctly sexed me, so that wasn't very nice. Which usually I get sir all the time. And I said, "Yeah, I'm looking for such and such." And she was like, "Oh, it's right over there." And I was like, "Oh, thank you."
That's amazing. I love that. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I had the, like, reverse of that. I sent out Adia to get a spring for, like, a spring to attach a dog bite pillow to then attach to a tree so that my dog can, like, jump and just, like, tug. And so I was like, "Okay, I already looked it up online. I need this exact one. This is what you say to the man. This is the amount that I need. This is the model number." And so she goes to Home Depot, and that fucker sold her, and he sold her like a spring that you use on like a bouncing horse. And like the max pull capacity or whatever was like 12 pounds. And so our dog like just like straightened the spring. And I was like, yeah, this is why I'm going to Home Depot next time.
There's no service there. You're just gonna have to
No.
find shit yourself. Actually, we have an Ace here that's still like a smaller
Hmm.
Ace Hardware, and I don't know if it's
Yeah.
over there either, but I don't know if it's a
We've
national
got a
or
couple aces and then
so
like a
this is
true
Ace, but
value.
it's owned by like a person. Like I guess what do they call that?
Oh, franchise.
Franchise. Yeah. So
Mhm.
it is like a family that owns it, and it's small. And they have like I'm like, how do they have so many damn employees? They have a ton of employees in there, which I'm happy for. But like, you can walk in there, always an employee. Almost it seems sometimes on every aisle. It seems like you can
Oh my
ask for
god.
something, and they know where it's at. They know what you need if you have a question. And I'm just like, I'm at the age now where I'm like, that's where I'm going.
Hmm.
If they ever go out of business, I'm gonna cry bitter bitter tears because I don't want to go back to the box stores. I don't.
No. Mm-mm. No. Yeah, fuck that.
And you know what? Maybe like, and the prices aren't that different, to be honest. I
No, they're
haven't
really
seen it being all that much cheaper, but you know what? I will pay the extra 50 cents to not have to walk through that
good.
fucking box store.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Mhm.
Oh.
I hate that.
So what's your plans for the future as a dog trainer?
I know what I don't wanna do.
Oh
I
yeah?
don't know what I think I'm happy to, like, expand what I'm doing now, like, just more of what I'm doing. I know that I do not want to take, like, a board and train type situation.
Mm,
Um, I just don't love the effectiveness or rather lack thereof. Um, and I don't like when the owner's not as involved. Um,
yeah.
because I can show up and train your dog all day, but
But then the
the
dog's gonna
money,
listen to you and not.
yeah, well, and like the money is spent when like if I show up for a private lesson, again, I can train your dog for the whole hour, but then I'm leaving, like, and we're not going to see each other till next week. So you better fucking listen, and then you better fucking do the homework before I see you next. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. Like you're like, yeah, the dog will listen to me. That's great. You got to live with it. I get to go home. Like, bye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Work
No,
with your fucking
absolutely.
dog. So as far as like, I think it's like an accountability too thing. Like, I just my previous job, the board and train, it was really hard to put a lot of like sweat and tears into these dogs and like get them to a great place and then like try your damnedest to transfer them back to this home life. But then when you get those texts that are like, oh, they're doing it wrong, they're this and this and this, and it was like, it didn't matter at that point how well I was communicating, like even if it was breaking it down like for a 3-year-old. If people didn't have their hands like doing it and like seeing how that would work, it really just wasn't very effective. and I don't wanna deal with other people's dogs. Like,
I trained a few horses in my youth, and I have to say that was the most heartbreaking thing most of the time is you'd work with these horses, you'd get them
yeah,
trained well, you'd hand them over to and you'd tell the person what to do and what not to do, you'd walk them through it, and they would do it. And you're like,
literally. It is like
"Why?"
putting your head through drywall, and
I'm
so I
just
will
like
not be doing that.
or you tell them straight out, you'd be like, "Okay, I trained the horse, but you're gonna need to ride it at least once a week. You got to ride it. You don't
Yeah.
understand, it's not a set and go. You can't just train the horse and then
Mhm.
leave it sit in a patch for 3 months, go hop on it and think it's not gonna buck your ass off or do something
Yeah.
else stupid, generally
Yeah.
speaking. Unless they've already been, like unless they're an older, well-broke horse that that's fine, but when the horse is young, when the horse is first trained, you have to put a couple years of consistent riding on them.
Yes.
And god, that would just frustrate the shit out of me. They'd call me up
It's
a couple
very
months
hard.
later, "I can't get on the horse." "Have you ridden it?" "No." Well, that's the problem.
Call the other night from a client that ghosted me for about 2 months. Can you talk? Can you talk to me? What? Yes, sure. I'm on my way to another lesson, but I have 15 minutes. What's up? It bit my daughter just now over, and I was like, okay, so what was he resource guarding, and why haven't you been doing X, Y, and Z that I told you not to do, and also why was that thing out anyways? Oh,
Mm.
maybe we should see each other next week. Okay, what's your schedule? Send him my schedule. Ghosted again. Text me the other day. So Friday? No, I'm at a wedding. Bye. Like, fuck off. My time matters. If you're not gonna follow through,
That's
good
another
fucking
good thing
luck.
about kinda like having your own business type of deal, huh?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. You're like, "No, no, I get to set the schedule here," you know? I
Yeah,
get to choose who I work with, which
yeah. And I've been too nice lately, so that kind of sucks. But I think I had hoped for better. But now
yeah.
it's hard this time because I'm tired.
No, I feel you.
And these dogs, I mean, it's not fun for the dogs either. They're suffering. They're in limbo. They don't know right from wrong. Like, they're getting screamed at. It's not fair or fun. So, yeah.
Should I have a question and then we'll wrap it up.
Sounds good.
Every time somebody knocks the door, my dog barks.
Okay.
Is that like do you should you just let that go?
What kind
Should
of
you
dog?
like she's she's like a terrier mix small.
Okay. How old?
She's probably I think she's about 4 or 5 now
Okay. And how long have you had her?
since she was a puppy.
Okay. And what have you tried in the past, if anything?
I go, "Shut up."
We're all guilty of that. I would
No,
say
I've tried yeah, I know yelling's probably not the best. I've
not really
actually
get you anywhere.
I've tried to get her to, like I've told her, "Go lay down, go to your bed," which she doesn't like beds, but if she kinda has a spot you've designated as the bed, she will go lay down, but she's still gonna bark. So, like, I've done the whole thing where you stand up and kinda, like, just stand there like, "No," like, blocking them so they'll, like, be quiet, but then someone has to stand there, right? Like,
Mhm,
or she'll start barking again.
mhm. Do you ever, are you in an apartment or townhome
Yeah,
or a home?
apartment.
Apartment? Okay. I don't I bet you could do this and maybe, like, bake some cookies for your neighbor or something, but I would literally just, like, stand by the door and, like, knock for a while, right? So counter condition her to the sound of the door. The door, you're gonna hear these sounds, and that doesn't mean, like, bark every single time. So
Mhm.
you could work a little bit on that. The other thing you could do, and I'm glad she has, like, the idea of a bed, is and this is gonna be where it's gonna probably require you and your wife, and if you wanna get your son involved, this could be fun too. Set up, like, a mock situation where someone is knocking on the door, and what is her job in that moment? So she hears the door knock, and she goes, "Bark." You could tell her, "Leave the door alone, leave it." And then, "What do we do instead of barking?" Right? "Go to your bed." But she's gonna need to be leashed, and you're gonna need to physically guide her there, and then say you wanna go answer the door, tether her off to hold her accountable to that space, and then go answer the door. Or
Mhm.
have your wife get the door, or your son. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, and which she does is she will go lay
Will
down
she
and
do
stay
that?
away from the door. She's not charging the door or anything.
Okay.
She just keeps
She just
doing it.
doesn't shut up?
Yeah.
Oh,
Which
okay.
I mean, here's the thing. Once the door is opened, she
Yep.
usually shuts up. Like once
Okay.
it's been addressed. But like I guess
Yeah.
I just wish because sometimes you have to answer the door and talk to somebody, right? Like they delivered
Mhm.
food or something like
Yeah, like,
that.
yeah.
And you're trying to talk to him and she's still like barking back.
Oh god, yeah.
As it
That
goes though, she's really not much of a barker.
yeah.
Like she
Okay. So
doesn't
she's
bark at
reacting to the
everything.
door,
It's just,
say?
huh?
Would you say she's reacting to the door then, like the sound at the door, or are there other sounds that she'll bark too?
She sometimes will kind of bark if people walk too close to the door
Okay. So
or
it's still
are
kind of stands around the door.
yeah, yeah, like
I would just take some treats and I would hang out by the door and just be like knocking on it, making silly sounds, and have her leash. The leash is the most underrated tool ever. I mean, you're not going to handle a 1,000 pound horse without a halter, right? Or
well,
some
yeah.
sort of line. Put the line on the dog, but put her on the door, on the line, grab some treats, knock on that door, and when she shuts the hell up, be giving her the treat. But you're also counter conditioning her to, hey, the sounds on the door are going to happen,
Mhm.
right? And then give her a job to do next time too. So, guiding her off because she can't be sitting there barking her head off if her job is now leave that thing alone and go do that thing, right?
Mhm.
Does
Yeah.
that kind of make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I would play with the door like and practice like
Because I
opening
mean, I
it.
guess the thing is like I don't mind that she barks initially, but I want her to listen to me when I say enough. Like stop now.
So
That's kind of
another one could be, and I've done this one a little bit because I like my Malinois, for example. I don't hate alert barking. I like it. It's just me
yeah.
and Addie in one house. So I, we get homeless people in the alley. Like, yeah, bark, do it. I feel safer.
Mhm.
So I will let her like let out a initial like big bark, like one or two, and then I'll say like, okay, enough, thank you, like, thanks, you did your job, now it's done. And if you don't shut the fuck up, we're going inside and you're going in your kennel. Or
Mhm.
you're recalling over here and you're gonna sit quietly. Right? So it's kind of a give and take. Because I don't wanna like completely turn it off.
Yeah, that's the thing. I
We
don't
don't want
want
to
her
go into a
really
tizzy
turning.
and like bubble over.
Yeah. I guess all in all, she's not that bad then. 'Cause
She could be way worse.
I mean, she really could. I have seen I mean, we had a neighbor one time where we were so glad to see the back of her and that white fucking puffy ass dog she had. That dog literally every single noise. This is apartment complex. Even noises we made down here, you could hear that dog bail off the couch and slam itself against the door.
Oh my god.
And I'm like,
What the
Jesus
fuck?
Christ.
That is not a happy dog. That's a very anxious and yeah, that's not a happy dog.
And then after her, we thought, oh, good. So, I falsely thought the dog was the worst situation. But then we got
Oh,
another neighbor that I sounded like she might have had a stripper pole in her bedroom. I'm not joking. And she was very active around 2 or 3 in the morning. And I'm like, are you and then she had a little kid that would be awake all hours of the night too, running around screaming and hitting walls, which if your kid has like some kind of disability or something, like I get it, but still, like,
yeah.
what the like I knew her kid was acting that way because I'm judgy. I know what she did for a living.
The kid is
Um,
not getting enough enrichment.
she
Like,
was she was a little on the trashy side. Let's just put it that way. And I'm
there.
like, look, she was a little ghetto. And I'm just like, your kid should be asleep. And what are you doing up there? Come on, lady. Um, but now we have two lovely neighbors. I think we're actually the loud ones, so I should go apologize to them.
Just make him some cookies.
I felt well. I do like my woodworking and stuff on the patio.
Yeah. Oh my
So
god, do that.
I feel kind of bad because sometimes I'll hear them close their sliding glass door, and I feel like maybe I should like make him some candle holders or something. So they'll be like, I know sometimes there's some noise.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm
that's funny.
country, so I have to do it no matter where I'm at.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
they're pretty good though. I gave them a plant when they moved in. So
You've
they have a
already
they do have a
established.
cat. They have a cat that cracks me up. They're really good about their cat because what cats are. They're like gonna be chaotic at night. Okay.
Yeah.
So what they do is when it's time for bed, they lock the cat in the front part of the apartment, not the bedrooms, because the bedrooms are separate down a hall, right? So they put the cat in the front part so that when it runs around, it's not on top of the bedroom, which so you don't hear it unless you're like me and my wife who often have insomnia, which makes no difference
Oh,
to us. So we just laugh. But if you're like in the kitchen or you're in the dining room, the living room, you'll hear the cat. Jesus
oh my god, that's amazing.
Christ.
That's so cute.
Sometimes I think the cat does get in the bedrooms though and knock shit off the shelves because there'll be
You
sometimes
hear
like
it?
2 in the morning, you'll hear something go, and you're like, the fuck was that?
Oh my god. I could not do that. Cats are so outside my realm of everything.
I know, but like the other day, the neighbor, when it was raining, the neighbor was laughing at me because I'm standing out there with the dog, right? You have a dog, you have to go out and take him to the
Yep,
bathroom regardless of rain. And she's like, see,
yep.
that's why I have a cat. I'm like, yeah, but my dog ain't running around at 3 a.m. slamming into walls either. So
Dogs are more like social too. Like you can take a dog to a brewery, to a fair, to
can you though? No.
can you?
Actually, I think if
If
I,
it we're in such a like dog friendly area. Like if there's a patio, there's basically dogs on it. And if you're not serving food inside, call and ask and you can probably bring your dog inside.
yeah, it's kind of the same here. People will take their dogs everywhere.
Yeah.
I just don't want to take my dog everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a
Yeah.
pain in the ass to
That's
me.
definitely yeah, and
Maybe
that's
because
like
I have a kid. I'm like, I have enough problems. I don't need to add the dog to it.
that's probably it. Like, well, and I like going out alone, but no, it's I think that's part of why the job is like fun for me. Is like I want to yeah, I might as well. Like I'll bring my dog. Like Adia and I when we first started dating, we were like, yeah, let's go to a event brewery weekend thing where they'll have little vendors and like it would be like a whole thing and it just prints cash for everyone else. So I'm like, yeah, let me teach a class at your patio. Let me teach a class in the library lawn. Let's do dog yoga. Like, there's such this push
Hmm.
of stuff that it's very fun to jump on events like that.
That's cool. Thanks for talking to me about this. This has been interesting.
Little different.
No, I love hearing like I wanted to have more conversations with just, lesbians. Just talk
Yeah.
about what you do, what's your passion, you know? And I also was fascinated about the whole dog training thing and also that you were into the dog sled thing. I thought this was so cool. Now that's got me thinking now. I'm like, oh, that would be cool, like to have like a little thing or a bike. I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe one
it's
day.
fun.
Although now I
Don't
feel like I'm too old. If I fell down, I'd just probably bust a damn head.
just wear a really good helmet and start slow. Mhm.
Okay. So, yeah, thanks for talking to me.
Thanks for having me.